Hurry up, guys. Let's complete what you initiated. On that Tuesday night at 11:30, the scent of bleach lingered in the kitchen as Elena entered through our front door. I was perched at our chosen granite countertop since 9, nursing a beer and feigning interest in contractor bills. In reality, I'd been watching the clock, my stomach knotted with a familiar blend of apprehension and anticipation that had become my constant companions these last few months. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, setting her designer bag on the marble countertop with a nonchalance only I knew was feigned. "I'm sorry I'm late." The Henderson campaign presentation extended, followed by Miles suggesting everyone go out for drinks to celebrate securing the account. That was Miles Hartman, her superior, a name that had been seeping into our conversations increasingly, always accompanied by Elena's radiant smile and overly cheerful tone. Glanced through my paperwork and observed my wife's appearance. Her chestnut hair was impeccably arranged, seemingly untouched by the reportedly long day she had. Her makeup was pristine, devoid of smudges or fading that should have occurred after 14 hours at work, and on her left forearm was a bruise as large as a man's thumb. "Seems like quite a festive occasion," I remarked, gesturing towards her arm. "What caused that?" Elena hesitated, her smile momentarily faltering. "Oh, that. I tripped leaving the restaurant and hit my arm on a car door handle. You know how wobbly I get in these heels after a few drinks, don't you?" "Exactly. And I was the Easter Bunny. For 15 years, I've been constructing custom homes in the Dallas-Fort Worth area since leaving the Army. I can tell the distinction between an accidental bruise and finger marks. What mattered more, however, was my knowledge of my wife. Elena Warren was many things: ambitious, strategic, image-conscious, but clumsy wasn't one of them. The woman effortlessly traversed a construction site in high heels without faltering. "Probably just a door handle," I commented, maintaining an even tone. "Want me to inspect it? May require ice." "Nah, it's all good, seriously." She was already making her way towards the stairs, her heels echoing against our hardwood floor. "I'm drained. Gonna hop in the shower and call it a night." I waited until the bathroom door closed and the water began to flow before I retrieved my phone. Miles Hartman's number was quickly found. Elena had provided it months ago when she started working late, suggesting I might need to contact her in an emergency. How considerate of her. He answered on the third call, his voice thick with swagger and arrogance. "Yeah, Miles, this is Jack Warren, Elena's husband." A pause ensued, followed by, "What the hell do you want?" "I want to know why my wife came home with bruises on her arm." The response through the phone was unpleasant and dismissive. "What if I gave her a slight beating? What can you do about it? Construction worker. Sue me? Elena's an adult. She understands what she agreed to." The line went dead. I remained frozen for a while, staring at my phone. Throughout all the arguments and reconciliations, the joyous moments and the widening gap between us in our marriage, I had never truly imagined Elena would actually be unfaithful. I might have suspected, wondered about those late nights and conferences during weekends. But hearing Miles Hartman's arrogant admission, knowing that not only was my wife having an affair with her boss, but he felt so confident as to physically harm her, a chill of calculation filled me. It was the same feeling I had experienced in the Middle East when our convoy was ambushed, and I realized we needed to fight our way out. Not fear, not anger, just a clear comprehension that the situation had changed, and it was time to adjust my strategies. I scrolled through my contacts until reaching Tommy Brennan's number. Tommy and I had previously served together. Now he operated a private security firm that focused on corporate investigations as well as unconventional problem-solving methods. "What's up, Jack? It's past midnight. What's the issue?" "I need a favor, a significant one. Miles Hartman, CEO of Hartman Marketing Group. I require you to make his life chaotic swiftly." Tommy hesitated for a moment, aware that asking too many questions when I spoke in a certain tone wasn't wise. "To what extent are we talking about making things difficult?" "I want him to wake up tomorrow morning questioning the sanity of the world." "Is that possible?" "I'll need 12 hours. The following morning, while drinking coffee and browsing news on my tablet, Elena descended. She had disguised her bruise with concealer and a long-sleeved blouse, but I could still notice the faint traces of discoloration if I looked carefully. "Did you sleep well?" I inquired. "Like a rock. And you?" "Naturally, you know my sleep habits. Every day finds me rising early." Glancing at my tablet, an intriguing story in the business section caught my eye this morning. It involved the FBI seizing assets at various Dallas marketing firms under scrutiny for fraud allegations. Elena halted mid-pour of her coffee, surprised. "Which firms?" I queried, reaching for the tablet. The Hartman Marketing Group was a main subject. Apparently, suspicious activities regarding client billing were reported to the federal authorities, implicating the entire executive team. A pallor fell over Elena's face. "That can't be true. Miles would never engage in such misconduct." She corrected herself. "I meant their financial records are impeccable. I've personally reviewed the quarterly reports, and I'm confident it will be resolved." Standing up and grabbing my keys, I added that federal investigations typically span months, suggesting a challenging period for everyone employed there. My phone vibrated with a message from Tommy. "1 hour from now, look up local news." This morning, Miles had quite an eventful time. I kissed Elena on the cheek. She slightly recoiled and left for my truck. "Have a productive day at work, dear. Avoid unnecessary trouble." For years, Lone Star Diner on Highway 35 has been my regular breakfast spot. It's the kind of place where coffee is strong, eggs are greasy, waitresses know everyone's secrets, and Penny Martinez, who has worked the morning shift since I started coming here, knows more about our Texas Corners affairs than anyone else. If you need information about someone, Penny is your best choice. "Jack Warren," she said, placing a coffee without asking. "It seems you have something preoccupying you." "Morning to you as well, Penny. You're not off the mark." "Troubles with your wife? I guess I shouldn't be surprised, considering her uncanny ability to get to the heart of things. Penny has a knack for reading people. What made you suspect that?" "Sweetheart, I've been serving coffee to married men for 3 decades. I recognize the signs." She leaned against the counter and softened her voice. "Additionally, I've noticed Elena around town more often, with someone else." My heart began to race slightly, but I maintained a calm demeanor. "What kind of person?" "The affluent type. A high-powered figure in a Mercedes, always footing the bill. For the past month, they've been having lunch at Romano's every Thursday. If you catch my drift, it's quite intimate. Romano's is a fancy Italian eatery downtown, the kind of place where business agreements are sealed and affairs take place." Elena had mentioned dining there a few times recently, always in connection with client meetings. "Is that the well-known figure named possibly Miles Hartman, owner of the swanky marketing firm in the skyscraper district?" Penny furtively looked around the diner to ensure no ears were listening. "If so, she owed you one. Honey, don't feel obligated, but if you require assistance balancing things out, you know how to reach me." The morning found me at my ongoing job site, a custom home in Plano's recent developments, where I supervised the installation of crown molding and built-in cabinets. It was run-of-the-mill work, yet it allowed me time for contemplation and strategizing. By lunchtime, I had devised a plan. Elena stores her gym bag in our bedroom closet. For the past year, she's attended CrossFit classes 3 times weekly, part of her dedication to preserving her professional image. I've always endorsed her fitness regimen, even when it kept her away for 2 hours every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday night. Now, I couldn't help but wonder about the other activities those gym visits might be hiding. During my lunch break, I returned home under the pretext of retrieving some overlooked blueprints. Elena was at Hartman Marketing Group, navigating what I assumed to be a turbulent day. Our house seemed altered, as if viewed for the first time since it had been our shared space. The remnants of our life together, the wedding photos on the mantel, souvenirs from vacations in various rooms, and carefully chosen furniture that we'd spent weekends selecting appeared like props in a grand play. As predicted, Elena's gym bag was located as usual, hidden behind her winter coats within our walk-in closet. I opened it cautiously, mindful of not disrupting the order of her workout attire and water bottle. Initially, everything seemed ordinary. There were sports bras, leggings, protein bars, the customary collection of hair ties, and lip balm. However, upon closer inspection, I found the phone. In a casual pocket, concealed by a modest towel, was a simple, unremarkable phone, not Elena's usual iPhone 13 that she always carried with her. Instead, it was a disposable device, used to avoid tracking or disclosure of communications. As I activated it, I skimmed through the latest messages, most exchanged between Elena and a contact named M. The conversations mirrored my expectations, yet still managed to make my stomach churn. I'm eagerly anticipating seeing you on Thursday. The usual spot, Edia's reservations made already. Wear the red dress, M. Last night was exhilarating. When can we repeat it? Ooh, soon. Gotta be careful with the husband issue. M. The husband issue, that's what I've been reduced to. A predicament to be navigated. I revisited older messages in search of the start of their affair. Their earliest communications dated back 3 months. At about the same time, Elena began working late and mysteriously going away on weekends, supposedly for industry events. Flirtatious workplace chatter between them soon escalated to explicit discussions of their meetings. However, it was a recent conversation that particularly stood out. He questioned her about a bruise. So, what's he going to do? Divorce you. You'll get half of everything anyway. M replied, it's not about the money. I don't want him to stir up trouble for us. Let me handle your husband. I've handled bigger issues than a difficult contractor. M then took pictures of the most damaging messages and cautiously put the phone back in its secret place. While organizing Elena's gym clothes, M found something else hidden at the bottom of the bag, a greeting card-sized envelope. Inside were $500 bills and a handwritten note. For being such a good girl. M commented, so Miles wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He's also bribing her. I was compensating her for a secret liaison, whether it involved prostitution, extortion, or some warped incentive scheme was immaterial. The crucial aspect was that I now possessed proof of their affair and the exchange of funds. I snapped photos of the money and the note before restoring everything to its original state. Elena would remain oblivious to my presence. As I exited the house, Tommy called. How's Miles doing? I inquired. Not well, he replied. To start, the FBI issue was merely the tip of the iceberg. Within an hour, his wife filed for divorce and took their children to her mother's house in Austin. His golf club membership has been frozen while they investigate questionable financial activities, and it seems that every client of Hartman Marketing Group received an anonymous email this morning detailing Miles' multiple sexual misconduct settlements. Multiple settlements? He confirmed. Apparently, your associate has been acting as an unscrupulous CEO for quite a while. 3 distinct women, each given hush money to suppress publicity. The details were concealed effectively, but not entirely. A feeling of grim satisfaction filled me up inside. How profound is this secrecy? To the extent that it necessitates connections in high places and blatant disregard for moral principles. Simply put, Miles should have been more cordial to his IT department throughout the years. As for what happens next, it depends on how far you wish to push things. Currently, Miles is grappling with a tumultuous mix of legal, financial, and personal issues. But if you desire to add salt to his wounds, I'm open to suggestions. Tomorrow morning, Hartman Marketing Group will hold an urgent board meeting to discuss the company's reaction to these allegations. They are searching for someone to blame, and you believe Miles is the culprit. I believe Miles is on the verge of realizing that having authority doesn't make one invincible, particularly when board members receive queries from reporters regarding their awareness of the mistreatment settlements. Following my conversation with Tommy, I navigated to my present work location, attempting to concentrate on tasks. However, my thoughts repeatedly wandered towards Elena, Miles, and the escalating number of individuals who were soon to understand that actions carry repercussions. Our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Pearson, was watering her roses upon my return home in the evening. She's lived on our street for 4 decades, assuming the role of the unofficial neighborhood watch coordinator. Nothing transpired within a 3-block radius without Mrs. Pearson being informed. "Good evening, Jack," she called out as I parked in my driveway. "How is Elena? I haven't seen much of her recently." "She's been putting in long hours at the office due to a major project," Mrs. Pearson acknowledged with a nod. "Yes, indeed. I'm certain that's true. Though I must admit, her work routine appears quite peculiar." I halted, my fingers gripping the door handle. Peculiar in what way? Simply put, given her extended work hours, she seemingly invests a great deal of time at the Rosemont Hotel on Thursdays during afternoons. You are aware that it's the location I pass by en route to our book club meeting, right? The Rosemont was a modest hotel approximately 15 minutes from our residence, catering to short-term rentals and maintaining a low profile. Elena had never hinted at any business there. "Are you certain that car was hers?" "Indeed, it was undoubtedly hers. That particular silver BMW is quite recognizable, and I spotted her exiting room 237 last week, looking rather agitated." Mrs. Pearson's voice maintained a calculated neutrality, but her message was unmistakable. She was well aware of Elena's activities at the Rosemont Hotel, and she was subtly offering me proof to verify it. "Mrs. Pearson, thank you for keeping an eye on our neighborhood. You're helping me clarify the situation." "Certainly, isn't it our duty to care for each other? You were home when I arrived, seated at the kitchen counter with your computer open and a glass of wine in hand, looking worried, understandable given the challenges you likely faced at work today." "How was your day?" I asked from my chair opposite yours. "In truth, awful. It seems there's a federal investigation into the company, and Miles has been out of reach all day. The office is in disarray." "Out of reach how?" "His assistant claims he's dealing with a personal crisis, but no one knows the details. The board has called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning, and whispers suggest that changes are imminent." I fetched myself a beer and took my seat opposite you. "Seems like a challenging predicament. Is there anything I could assist with?" You looked up from your laptop, and for a brief instant, I saw something resembling raw vulnerability in your gaze. "Could you bear with me? The coming weeks are going to be quite challenging as we tackle issues within the company. I appreciate your understanding. Of course, we're all in this together." However, as I observed her resume her work on her laptop, seemingly typing messages instead of emails, I pondered if Elena was fully aware of the imminent shift our team dynamic was about to undergo. The urgent board meeting at Hartman Marketing Group was set for 9 a.m., but I was parked across the street from their downtown high-rise by 8:30. Tommy had texted me the previous night, "Performance starts at 9. Don't miss the climax." Elena left home at 7, stating she wanted to reach the office early to prepare for what she anticipated would be a demanding day. She appeared anxious, frequently checking her phone and altering her attire twice before settling on a somber black suit that conveyed damage control. Exactly 15 minutes past 9, the show commenced. Emerging from the building's main entrance, Miles Hartman appeared as if he'd been run over by a freight train. His immaculate hair was disordered, his costly suit crumpled, and his complexion, usually vibrant, was now pale and damp, suggestive of a night spent tossing and contemplating the wreckage of his life. A small contingent of reporters and photographers trailed at a respectful distance behind him. Evidently, someone had tipped off the media about the board meeting and its anticipated outcome. "Mr. Hartman," one reporter called out, "could you provide comment on your resignation from Hartman Marketing Group?" Miles halted his stride and faced the cameras with a growl. "I've got nothing to say about anything. This is all a misconception that will be resolved promptly. As for the abuse allegations, are you intending to challenge the claims?" "There are no charges," Miles retorted sharply. "The situation appears to be a calculated campaign orchestrated by my adversaries and dissatisfied personnel." Upon confronting a reporter, Miles hastily tried to reach his Mercedes, almost colliding with him in his haste. However, I observed an interesting detail: all 4 of his tires were deflated, undoubtedly the work of Tommy. Miles seemed stunned by this turn of events, a reaction usually reserved for catastrophes. Subsequently, he began to make what appeared to be frantic phone calls. About 20 minutes later, Elena stepped out of the building. Despite her shaken demeanor, she tried to preserve her professional facade while maneuvering through the remaining reporters. I observed as she got into her BMW and exited the parking garage, then trailed her discreetly. Instead of going home or to another workplace, Elena drove directly to the Rosemont Motel. I positioned my vehicle at a gas station opposite the street and observed as she sat inside her car for numerous minutes, engaged in a phone call. Her posture, energetic hand motions, and repeated hair tousling suggested an emotional discussion. Eventually, she departed her car and headed towards room 237, identical to the one Mrs. Pearson noticed her exit from a week prior. I allowed 10 minutes to elapse before I crossed the street and rapped on the door. "Miles," came Elena's voice, "did you misplace your key card once more?" "It's not Miles," was my response. A moment of quiet followed, then the audible sound of a security chain being fastened. "Jack, what brings you here?" I questioned. "I believe we are both aware why I am here, Elena. Open the door." "I cannot. This is an inopportune moment." "This discussion will never be opportune, but we're going to have it regardless." A prolonged gap ensued, followed by the chain shaking and the door being opened. Elena stood there in her bra and skirt, her blouse hanging on a chair behind her. The room bore the scent of economical air freshener and remorse. "How did you locate me?" she inquired. "Does it make a difference? What matters is that I have." I entered the chamber, taking notice of the wrinkled bed, the wine bottle on the nightstand, the disarrayed garments depicting the tale of activities within. "So, this is where you've been spending your Thursday afternoons." Elena's countenance shifted through a series of emotions: surprise, apprehension, resistance, and eventually a sort of resigned fury. "All right, you've got me. Are you content now?" "Content? I am many things at the moment, but content isn't one of them." She hastily donned her blouse, her actions sharp and protective. "Listen, Jack, I understand how this situation appears, but it's not as you think." "Is that so?" "Then elucidate it to me. Assist me in comprehending why my spouse is partially clothed in a motel, awaiting her boss who just resigned from his position due to allegations of sexual misconduct." "Miles hadn't been fired. He resigned." "Are you truly intending to concentrate on this matter at the moment?" Elena perched on the bed's edge, concealing her face within her hands. For a brief instant, I suspected she might unveil the truth to me. Instead, she lifted her gaze with an expression akin to what I'd witnessed during demanding business transactions. "Very well, yes. Miles and I have been involved, but it's not some scandalous liaison, Jack. It's intricate." "Just how is it intricate?" "Miles has been guiding me professionally, aiding my career progression, which has led to intimacy. But this isn't about affection or romance. It's about opportunities." I gazed at my wife in bewilderment, struggling to comprehend her words. "You're implying that you've been using your position for career advancement by accepting money from your superior. Please, refrain from vulgarity. This is not what it seems." "Then, what does it appear as, Elena? Because, from my perspective, it appears as though you've been receiving compensation from your boss in exchange for favors." Her eyes expanded slightly. "How did you discover about the money?" "I am aware of numerous aspects: the secret phone, the cash in your gym bag, the bruises that Miles has inflicted upon you. I have insight into your Thursday lunches at Romano's and the non-existent weekend conferences." Elena's face turned pale. "Are you monitoring me? I've been attempting to fathom why my spouse has been deceiving me for months. Now I possess an answer." She rose and began wandering around the tiny room, her thoughts evidently chaotic. "Jack, pay attention to what I'm saying. This affair with Miles is nearly concluded. He will abandon his wife, and we will found a joint venture together. A genuine partnership. Elena, Miles has been dismissed from his own company. His wife already departed him and took their children. The FBI is probing him for fraud, and there are at least 3 women who have accused him of sexual misconduct. Exactly what do you think he can offer for your career at this point?" "You fail to comprehend. Miles is resilient. He'll recover from this. Not so fast, Elena. Miles is done. If you continue to associate with him, you're sinking with the ship. She halted her pacing and faced me. Is that a warning? It's a dose of reality. But since you bring it up, let me make something clear. If you believe you can embarrass me, swindle our marriage, and flee with your sugar daddy without repercussions, you are sorely mistaken. What's your plan? Divorce me? Proceed. I'll get half of everything regardless. The offhand manner in which she spoke, as if our 15-year union was merely a business arrangement to be severed, struck harder than expected. Yet, it also illuminated something crucial. Elena wasn't the woman I had married anymore. Perhaps she never was. We shall see, I replied, heading for the door. Have a nice afternoon, Elena. I have a feeling it's one of the last good ones you'll have for quite some time. As I strode towards my truck, my phone vibrated with a text from Tommy. Phase 2 is set when you decide. I glanced at the motel room where likely Elena was calling Miles about our discussion. Then I responded, let's proceed. The following morning, I found myself sipping coffee and reading the paper when Elena descended. She appeared tired, as her sleepless night was evident given her late-hour return. We need to discuss, she said, pouring herself a trembling cup of coffee. I'm here. You should know that I've ended things with Miles. Whatever transpired between us, it's concluded. So abruptly. Yesterday, I realized I was making a grave error. I desire to work on our marriage, Jack. I want us to attend counseling and find solutions to mend this. I examined Elena's face, searching for any hint of sincere regret or dedication. Instead, I saw the same strategizing expression she wore at the motel, the look of someone attempting to navigate their way out of a challenging situation. Elena, do you still love me? This question seemed to momentarily stun her. Absolutely, I've always loved you. We've been married for 15 years. But that's not what you asked. Do you love me right now, today? You see, my question isn't about our past. She hesitated before responding. The silence spoke volumes to me. I figured as much, I said, getting up and gathering my keys. Elena, I need you to ponder deeply about your next steps, because the decisions you make in the coming days will shape the future of this relationship. What do you mean? What I'm trying to say is that I'm not the same man you married 15 years ago, she explained. I've learned certain skills in the army, dealing with those who betray their comrades, and in business, handling people attempting to deceive me. Her face paled. Jack, you're worrying me. Could it be that you're grasping the predicament you're immersed in at last? After leaving her standing in the kitchen, I headed to my job site where I installed custom cabinets and contemplated revenge during the morning hours. By noon, a plan had formed. Tommy joined me at the Lone Star Diner, flashing a grin that hinted at good tidings. Do you have any news? I asked him. Indeed, I do. Miles Hartman has committed a grave error. What did he do? He attempted to blame Elena for the mistreatment scandal, accusing her of making the first move in their relationship and blackmailing him for money and career advancements. The irony was nearly perfect. Miles was trying to save himself by tarnishing Elena's reputation, oblivious to the fact that he was helping me instead. How do you know this? This morning, Miles contacted a journalist from the Dallas Business Journal for an exclusive interview, which will be published tomorrow, including leaked text messages between him and Elena, some of which are explicit and originated from her burner phone. Miles had saved screenshots as evidence, intending to use them against Elena if necessary. I sat back in the booth, contemplating this new information. While Elena had betrayed me, she remains my wife. Although the public humiliation in the business section of the newspaper might offer some satisfaction, it could also reflect negatively on me. Tommy, I said, I need you to help me. I want you to ensure that story doesn't get published. Tommy looked at me quizzically. Are you certain? This could be an ideal opportunity to tarnish Elena's reputation without getting personally involved. You're certain that Elena's embarrassment will become public knowledge, but it'll be on my terms, not Miles Hartman's. What do you suggest I do instead? I showed Tommy photos of Elena's burner phone messages. I want you to ensure these are distributed to the appropriate recipients, just not to the media. Who then? Her clients, colleagues, book club members, yoga instructor, everyone in her professional and personal network. Tommy's smile broadened. It seems you aim to dismantle her from within. You want her to realize that actions have consequences, and these consequences should stem from the people she values most. Regarding Miles, he'll be dealing with his own issues tonight. Elena didn't return home that evening, a development I had anticipated following Tommy's revelation about Miles attempting to betray her. Unexpectedly, I received a call at 6 in the morning from Detective Sarah Renner of the Dallas Police Department regarding my wife. My blood ran cold upon hearing this. What transpired? Is she injured? She responded. No, sir, she isn't hurt, but she was arrested. Arrested? What for? I asked. To which she replied, attack and battery. It appears that she attacked her ex-boss, Miles Hartman, in the parking lot of his apartment complex last night. Mr. Hartman is filing charges. I sat up in bed to comprehend this news. Although Elena had flaws, violence was not usually one of them. Is she well? Can I visit her? She's being held until a bail hearing today, which takes place in the morning. You can see her afterwards, provided she posts bail. What is the bail amount? The judge will decide that. However, there's more you should be aware of, Mr. Warren. There's another piece of information I have to share with you. Detective mentioned that upon arresting your spouse, they found a large sum of money, approximately $10,000, along with documents hinting at potential involvement in blackmail. The clues appear to be fitting together. It seems Elena visited Miles, possibly demanding he retract his statements to the press or asking for additional funds to vanish. This encounter apparently turned violent, and now she faces criminal charges. Detective Renner suggested you should prepare for a conversation with your wife as she wishes to speak with you, claiming to possess information about Miles Hartman that is vital to you. When I spoke with Detective Renner, he declined to provide details over the phone, but indicated that Mr. Hartman might pose a personal risk to you. After our call, I reached out to Tommy. He expressed shock upon learning about Elena's arrest on the police scanner, wondering what transpired. Need you to come to the Dallas County Jail. I'm on my way. The Dallas County Jail was as dismal as anticipated: gray concrete walls, harsh fluorescent lighting, and a mix of industrial cleaner and human despair. Elena, in an orange jumpsuit, looked tiny and vulnerable, her usually neat hair makeup smeared. Thank goodness you're here, Jack, she said as the guard led her into the visitation room. I need you to pay close attention. Miles is planning to harm you. I took a deep breath and urged Elena to slow down. Tell me what occurred last night. It was about Miles spreading rumors and making me appear the culprit in all this. But when I reached his apartment, he wasn't alone. Who accompanied him? Two large men, the type of individuals one hires to intimidate someone. Miles claimed they were there to assist him with his Jack issue. A shiver ran down my spine. Jack accuses you of causing all his misfortunes. The FBI investigation, his wife leaving, losing his job. He suspects your involvement in everything. Elena wasn't mistaken. Most of it was indeed my doing. However, I didn't expect Miles to uncover this and retaliate against me. What specifically did he say? He claimed you were asking too many questions and getting too close to the truth. He warned that men like you, military men, are dangerous when they feel betrayed, and the only way to handle the situation was to neutralize the threat. Neutralize the threat? Tears filled Jack's eyes as he said this. I think he's planning to harm you, Elena. The visiting room suddenly felt confined and chilling. Elena, why should I trust your words? You've been deceiving me for months. But despite my mistakes, the ruin of our marriage, and everything I've done, I don't want to see you harmed. And because Miles showed me images. What kind of images were those? Images of you at work, home, and the diner where you have breakfast suggest someone has been trailing you, Jack. Someone is monitoring your habits and recording your actions. As I leaned back in my chair, I tried to make sense of this information. If Elena was truthful, then my campaign against Miles had transformed into something far more perilous than anticipated. Why didn't Miles contact the police if he suspected you were responsible for his issues? Because he lacks evidence, and because he harbors secrets himself. However, primarily because he's no longer thinking logically. Jack, in a matter of days, you annihilated his entire life. Career, marriage, reputation all gone. He's desperate, furious, and not functioning rationally. Thus, he opted to engage thugs to address his issues. That's when I assaulted him. Upon learning what he intended to do to you, Elena reached across the table and held my hand. I know I don't deserve your aid after my actions. However, Jack, you must exercise caution. Miles is perilous. I scrutinized my wife's face, searching for any hint of manipulation or deceit. Instead, I detected genuine apprehension, not for herself, but for you. Elena, I implore you to disclose everything, every detail about your encounter with Miles. For the subsequent 20 minutes, Elena detailed her confrontation with Miles. The two men were presumably former military or police officers, hired to monitor me and, if required, make me vanish in a fashion that would seem accidental. Miles had shown Elena images of my daily routine, work sites, even the interior of my truck. Someone has been tailing me for at least a week, recording my activities and waiting for an opportune moment to attack. The strategy was to simulate a construction accident, Elena explained, something involving heavy machinery or a structure collapse. Miles stressed the importance of a seemingly natural departure because many would inquire if you vanished without a trace. When is this event occurring? Perhaps today, perhaps tomorrow. Miles expressed a desire to act swiftly to prevent further complications from your presence. I exited the prison with my thoughts racing. Elena's bail hearing was scheduled for the afternoon, ensuring her safety for at least a few more hours. However, I needed to devise a strategy to deal with Miles and his hired goons before they struck. Tommy waited for me in the parking lot, leaning against his truck with a somber expression. "How serious is it?" he inquired. "Serious? Miles has enlisted professionals to eliminate me. Damn it. I hadn't anticipated such drastic measures from him. It appears we underestimated the extent of his desperation." I shared Elena's situation with Tommy, and his expression grew more ominous as he listened. "Jack, you must vanish for a while. Let me handle this." "No. Avoiding the issue won't resolve it. Miles will merely wait for my reappearance." "What's your next move?" I cast a glance at the county jail, where my wife was detained due to her attempts to shield me from the repercussions of my own decisions. Then I contemplated Miles Hartman, ensconced in his apartment, strategizing with his hired enforcers for my demise. I'm determined to put an end to this tonight. What's your strategy? If Miles is opting for rough tactics, so be it. Let's witness the true face of toughness. That night, I navigated to the construction site where I was constructing a custom home for a high-end client. It was a vast, contemporary design characterized by sleek lines and costly materials, a property that would fetch $2 million upon completion. However, its isolation, surrounded by vacant lots and unfinished foundations, was more significant. If Miles and his gang were plotting an attack, this would be the ideal location. Each day, I parked my truck in the customary spot and feigned unloading tools. Instead of heading indoors as usual, I navigated around to the back and stationed myself near the access road for observation. Tommy was positioned on the opposite side of the site, armed with a powerful camera and maintaining contact with Detective Renner. Our objective was straightforward: let Miles's men make their move, capture evidence, and subsequently submit it to the police. At 8:30 sharp, a black SUV arrived at the construction site. Two individuals wearing dark attire exited, exhibiting a level of professionalism that supported Elena's account. They were not ordinary street thugs or fledgling criminals. They were seasoned operators skilled in tactical maneuvers. Through binoculars, I watched as they assessed the site, searching for an optimal entry point for the house. One was carrying what appeared to be a crowbar, while the other had a roll of rope. Their intention was likely to frame my disappearance as occurring during a burglary or botched robbery. My phone vibrated with a message from Tommy, caught on camera. "Police are on the way." However, as I observed the two men approaching the house, It became clear that waiting for the police might not be enough. These were seasoned professionals who knew how to erase their traces and avoid leaving evidence. Even if they were apprehended tonight, Miles would simply engage new personnel to complete the task. I needed to deliver a message that would put an end to this once and for all. I exited my hiding place and moved around behind the SUV. The engine was still running in the ignition, a blunder that was about to prove costly for Miles' hired guns. I drove their vehicle approximately a quarter mile down the road, then contacted Tommy. "New strategy," I said. "I intend to converse with our guests." "Jack, that's reckless. Let the police handle this. The police will detain them, they'll post bail, and Miles will hire others. Tonight must conclude this matter." I returned to the construction site where the two men were inside the house, likely readying their scheme for my demise. I selected a piece of rebar from a stack of construction materials, gauging its weight in my hand. I then entered through the front door. "Gentlemen," I announced in the empty room, "it seems we need to converse." The two men swiveled around, clearly taken aback by my presence. The burly one, a man with a bald head and prison tattoos, reached for something hidden under his jacket. "I suggest you reconsider that action," I warned, brandishing the rebar. "Observe, I'm aware of your intentions here. I know who sent you and what your plan is for me." The smaller man, who appeared to be an ex-cop, moved closer. "Perhaps there's been a misinterpretation." "No confusion. Miles Hartman enlisted you to remove me, making it appear as an accident." "Are you genuinely prepared to carry out murder for his payment?" This was the question posed between the two men, both seasoned professionals who had become shrewd enough to acknowledge the shift in their circumstances. "What is your request?" the retired cop inquired. "I require you to return to Miles and convey a message. Inform him that if he dares approach me or my family again, I'll ensure his career setbacks will pale in comparison." "And what if we decline?" A smile as familiar as the one used in the Middle East to persuade captured insurgents about the benefits of cooperation graced my face. "Then you shall discover why the army trained me on 17 different ways to eliminate someone using construction materials." The larger man retreated a step. "Listen, this isn't personal, it's strictly business. Allow me to present a more profitable business offer. Depart immediately, erase all memory of Miles Hartman from your mind, and I will do the same regarding you. If you return and threaten me again, I'll track you down and display the essence of true brutality." The former police officer examined my expression, seemingly deliberating if I was bluffing. Whatever he discerned there seemed to confirm my lack of deceit. "Let's go," he said to his companion. "This isn't worth it. What about our vehicle?" The larger individual inquired. "Your SUV is approximately a quarter mile ahead. The keys are on the front seat." As the two men headed for the door, I called out again, "Remember to convey my message to Miles." 20 minutes later, Detective Renner arrived with two police cars and an unsatisfied expression. "Mr. Warren, we were informed about a current attempted homicide. Seems like a false alarm, detective, just me working late on the house." She glanced over the vacant construction site, evidently not convinced by my explanation, but unable to prove otherwise. "Mr. Warren," she said, "please remember that we are here to serve and protect. Your message to Miles is received. If confronted with a threat, Warren, it's wise to contact the authorities instead of handling it personally. That advice I'll remember, detective." As the police departed, Tommy emerged from his concealed location, beaming. "Brave or foolish, maybe both, yet effective. How do you know for certain?" A mysterious text arrived on my phone. Delivered. "No additional steps will be taken. Professionals appreciate other professionals' skills," I explained, "and they understand when a situation isn't worth the danger." Miles Hartman's life kept unraveling over the ensuing days, but he didn't surrender passively. Elena managed to post bond and returned home, yet the tension between us felt forced and contrived. She shifted into the spare room and attempted to mend our relationship, yet each gesture seemed calculated. She was attempting to craft a story of repentance to save the marriage during the impending divorce proceedings. However, unbeknownst to her, I had consulted a divorce attorney earlier. The lawyer clarified that the infidelity served as grounds for a fault-based divorce in Texas. With evidence of financial misconduct and payments from her lover, most of your assets could be safeguarded. Regarding spousal support, under the given circumstances, it was improbable she'd receive substantial alimony, especially if we could prove her actions amounted to career-driven prostitution. The legal strategy was solid, yet insufficient. Elena had humiliated me, robbed our marriage, and jeopardized my life with her reckless affair. Even a favorable divorce felt like leniency. I desired for her to comprehend the devastation of losing everything. Tommy had been executing the second stage of our plan. Explicit text messages between Elena and Miles were subtly spreading among Elena's professional and social groups, not through mass dissemination or anonymous correspondence. Instead, Tommy employed a more strategic method. As he explained during breakfast at the Lone Star Diner, the objective is to present it as gossip, rather than a coordinated attack. Thus, different individuals are discovering the messages and passing them on to their acquaintances. How does this function? For instance, Elena's yoga instructor stumbled upon a copy of the messages in her car yesterday. She showed them to several people in her class, and now half the women within Elena's social circle are discussing it. The origin of the copy remains unclear. Officially, no one has identified it. Unofficially, it might have been placed under her windshield wiper while she was teaching a class. The finesse of Tommy's method lay in its subtlety. Elena couldn't pinpoint any specific source of leaks, nor assert she was purposefully singled out. Instead, it seemed her secrets were spontaneously emerging via regular social circles. Regarding her professional life, the situation becomes intriguing. Hartman Marketing Group is in crisis management, attempting to disassociate from both Miles and Elena. However, they can't terminate her without grounds since she hasn't been convicted. For the moment, she retains her job. Yet, her major clients are inquiring about her judgment and professionalism. It's rumored that the Henderson account, which she supposedly secured, is considering moving their business to another firm. This development gave me a sense of dark satisfaction. Elena's career had consistently been her top priority over our marriage, honesty, and integrity. Observing its disintegration due to her own decisions seemed like a poetic retribution. However, Miles remained at large, and I was aware he wasn't through creating trouble. That very afternoon, while performing trim work on my construction site, I spotted a familiar black SUV parked opposite the street. This vehicle had been driven by Miles's hired enforcer. However, this time it held only one passenger, a man with a long-range camera. I quickly contacted Tommy. "They're back," I stated. "The same individuals from the previous night. A different person, but the same car. He's photographing me." It didn't make sense. We had thought that incident was resolved. So did I, but evidently Miles failed to grasp the message. After completing my tasks for the day, I drove home, monitoring my rearview mirror. The SUV trailed me for approximately half the journey before turning onto a side street. Yet, I felt certain that I was still being observed. Upon my arrival, Elena was in the kitchen preparing a seemingly extravagant meal. For several days prior, she had been performing household duties, attempting to embody the devoted spouse aiming to salvage her marriage. "How did your day go?" she inquired, without looking away from the stove. "Intriguing. It appears someone's been photographing me at work." Elena paused mid-stir, her grip on the wooden spoon tightening. "Photographs? What type of photographs are these?" "Surveillance photos. High-quality equipment. Skilled technique. Any idea who might be interested in chronicling my daily life?" Turning to face me, I noticed the dread etched on her face. "Jack, could Miles be behind this? Could he be employing people to trail me? We've discussed this before. We know he would. The question now is why he hasn't ceased these actions despite my protests. Maybe he didn't terminate their services. Perhaps they operate independently now." The prospect I hadn't pondered earlier is troubling. If Miles' associates persisted with their observation without further instruction, it suggests they could be orchestrating something more complex than a mere hit job. "Elena, you need to disclose every detail about those men. Their identities, histories, how Miles connected with them. Everything. I don't know their names. Miles merely referred to them as his associates. However, they seemed familiar with him on a personal level rather than just business contacts. How so? The manner in which they addressed him, the way they interacted, it wasn't typical of a professional relationship. It felt more like they had collaborated before. A theory started to take shape in my head. What if Miles' predicament wasn't solely attributable to my campaign against him? What if there were other past wrongs he had committed, individuals seeking retribution? Elena, during your relationship with Miles, did he ever speak of having issues with other associates, business partners, or perhaps debtors like investors he had misled about project risks? You seem to recall a problematic development deal that led to significant losses for certain investors, whom Miles described as unforgiving. Despite the lack of specifics, Miles appeared anxious over it. He hinted that these investors were not the type to take defeats calmly. With this information in mind, Miles may have hired muscle for protection rather than just for dealing with you. The surveillance might not be only about planning an attack on you. Instead, it could be a ploy to use you as a diversion or a fall guy. I contacted Tommy and arranged to meet at the construction site that evening. If Miles intended to utilize you in some underhanded scheme to resolve his other predicaments, I wanted to be prepared. What do you believe Miles is planning? Tommy queried, eyeing the partially constructed house. I think Miles might be in a greater predicament than we assumed, leading him to act irrationally. For instance, contriving a conflict among me and his other adversaries, expecting them to eliminate each other, thereby leaving him unscathed. Tommy pondered this. That seems quite elaborate and risky. Miles has always been a risk-taker. It's how he built his empire, and likely how he plans to escape trouble now. We didn't have to wait long to confirm it. At 9 o'clock, a black SUV arrived at the construction site, followed by another vehicle, a white van with darkened windows. That's new, Tommy noted. 4 men exited from the 2 vehicles and headed towards the house. I recognized 2 of them as Miles' initial muscle hires, but the other 2 were unknown. They moved in an unrefined manner, lacking professional restraint and displaying open hostility instead. Tommy, call Detective Renner, was my suggestion. Inquired about a burgeoning predicament, I ask for your response. You intend to uncover Miles' true intentions. Instead of concealing and awaiting law enforcement, I left the house to engage the 4 men head-on. Gentlemen, it seems this is recurring. How can I assist you today? The former police officer I had previously spoken to stepped forward, yet his composure was altered, more anxious, less assured. Warren, we need to converse. I'm open to hearing. This isn't about you anymore. Miles has found himself in deep trouble with dangerous individuals. They believe you're involved. What sort of trouble? One of the newcomers, a stocky man adorned with gang tattoos, interjected. Miles Hartman failed to repay our employer $2 million, money intended for a real estate project that never materialized. And you think I'm associated with this property deal? We suspect you're the reason Miles can't repay the debt. Troubles for Miles escalated after you interfered in his affairs, a fact that nearly provoked laughter due to irony. However, Miles' financial woes were unrelated to me. Instead, his adversaries pinned the blame on me because of the coincidental timing of his other misfortunes. Ah, I see, I replied. Miles hinted that if I were out of the picture, he could regain stability and clear his debt, a suggestion that a gang member agreed with. Yet you trusted him. Given our employer's dislike for being shortchanged, we are desperate to try any solution. Here's the thing, the former cop looked uneasy as the discussion took an unexpected turn. This doesn't have to get confrontational. Stop this grudge against Miles, let his business recover, and everyone benefits except that I am not responsible for Miles' inability to repay his debts. His business is ruined, his reputation tarnished, and he faces numerous criminal investigations. Even if I vanished tomorrow, he would remain bankrupt and unemployable. Could be. However, they want us to confirm something. This man pulled out a picture from his jacket, making me prepare for a fight or escape. Instead, it was a photo of Elena taken recently near our house. she is his wife. Miles claims she has details about some of the money he owes us, says she's been helping him move assets to evade other creditors. Seeing the picture sent a chill down my spine. It seemed Miles wasn't just using me as a fall guy. He was planning to endanger Elena, too. My wife has no knowledge of Miles' business affairs. Miles claims otherwise, implying she was more than just a partner to him in business. The approaching sound of sirens signaled the arrival of Detective Renner and her team. "This isn't finished," the man said, moving towards his vehicles. "We'll devise another method to recover our funds." As the four men departed, it became clear that my conflict with Miles had escalated into something far more hazardous than I initially thought. He wasn't merely attempting to ruin me. He was aiming to involve Elena in his destruction, leveraging her to negotiate with his creditors. For the first time since learning about Elena's affair, a sense of protectiveness towards my wife stirred within me. Detective Renner arrived accompanied by 3 patrol cars and a grave expression. "Mr. Warren, this is the second incident this week involving threats against you. Could you explain what's happening?" I offered her an abridged account of events, emphasizing Miles' financial predicaments and his attempts to shift blame onto me with his creditors. "Can you provide proof for these claimed debts?" "I don't have it directly, but I suspect that investigating Miles' business activities from the past year will uncover some intriguing associations." Detective Renner scrutinized my expression for a while. "Mr. Warren, let me offer you counsel. Whatever the issue is between you and Miles Hartman, it should conclude before someone suffers severe harm." I concurred with the detective, but as I drove home that evening, I realized the situation was far from resolved. Miles was in a precarious position, desperate and potentially dangerous. He had attempted to eliminate me, and now he was using Elena in his strategies to evade his creditors. It was time to bring this to an end decisively. The idea struck me at 3 in the morning, its straightforwardness jolting me awake. Miles Hartman had made a grave mistake. By enlisting his creditors in his feud against me, he exposed the magnitude of his financial predicament. He had demonstrated to me explicitly how to annihilate him thoroughly. I rose and walked to my home office, spending the following 2 hours examining property records, corporate filings, and court documents. By daybreak, I had a concise understanding of Miles' dire financial predicament. Hartman Marketing Group had been experiencing massive financial losses for months prior to our engagement. Miles was using incoming client funds to settle old debts, mortgaging company assets for personal expenditures, and apparently diverting cash from imaginary investment projects promised to private investors. My crusade against him did not lead to his financial downfall. Rather, it expedited the process and left no room for concealing his issues. However, the most intriguing revelation was Dmitry Volkov's identity, a Russian entrepreneur with rumored connections to organized crime, as Miles' principal creditor. Dmitry Volkov invested $2 million into a supposed luxury hotel project in downtown Dallas led by Miles, who never initiated construction and filed no permits. The funds ended up in Miles' personal accounts. Investors like Volkov don't consider $2 million losses as ordinary business expenses. I found Elena in the kitchen, dressed for work while appearing anxious. "Elena, we need to discuss last night's events." "I'm listening." "The men who visited you mentioned that involvement in Miles' business endeavors." "Involved? Not like they think." "Yes, Miles asked me to handle some financial transactions, believing them to be legitimate business deals." "What specific transactions?" Elena paled at my question. "Well, I thought so. Financial transfers between accounts, establishment of dummy corporations, all for tax purposes." Stunned, I studied my wife as she revealed her part in the ordeal. "Elena, are you aware of what you've been discussing? What exactly do you imply?" I seemed to be explaining money laundering and potential fraud. Elena slumped into a chair, her face now ashen. "Oh my God, Jack, I didn't know. I believed I was merely assisting with regular business activities." "How much money are we referring to?" "I'm not certain of the exact amount, but a significant sum. Many millions." At this point, all pieces of the puzzle fit together. Miles hadn't only been compensating Elena for Zach's, he had been employing her to conceal stolen funds from his creditors. Elena wasn't merely an adulteress, she was unknowingly complicit in fraud. Elena, I need you to disclose everything. Each transaction, every account, every shell company, everything. For the next hour, Elena detailed her participation in Miles' financial schemes. She had opened bank accounts under her name, signed incorporation documents for fictitious companies, and moved millions of dollars through a convoluted system of shell corporations. Everything was recorded, everything could be traced, and it all implicated Miles and Elena in a scheme to defraud his investors, leading to a conspiracy allegation. Jack, what should I do if the police discover this? I responded harshly. You're going to prison unless we find a solution. Can you help me? Please, Jack, despite my undeserving nature, I'm afraid. For the first time in months, I truly looked at my wife. The self-assured, strategic woman who had been controlling me and betraying our marriage was absent. In her stead was someone genuinely frightened and utterly lost. Elena, there's only one solution to this predicament. You must testify against Miles. What do you mean? I explained. You'll have to tell the authorities everything you just told me. You'll have to confess that Miles used you for money laundering and that you were too naive to comprehend what was happening. But such an action would ruin your career, tarnish your reputation. Elena, it seems your career is already in ruins and your reputation shattered. The question now remains, will you face prison time or not? She began to weep then, genuine tears for the first time since the entire debacle commenced. Jack, I'm deeply sorry. I never intended for any of this to transpire. I understand your remorse, but apologies won't rectify this situation. Only actions will. I contacted Detective Renner and arranged a meeting for later that day. Following that, I reached out to Tommy and requested his presence at the diner. You appear to have a strategy, Tommy commented as he sat down opposite me. Indeed, but it's not the strategy I had envisioned. I explained Elena's confessions regarding her part in Miles' money laundering scheme to Tommy. My God, Jack, Elena's predicament is dire. But her predicament can also serve as our advantage. How so? Because Elena possesses intricate knowledge of Miles' financial misdeeds. Tom's eyes expanded. You plan to utilize Elena to bring down Miles. I'm giving Elena the opportunity to save herself by revealing the truth. Her decision on how to use this chance is hers. If she chooses not to, then she goes to prison and Miles ultimately gets eliminated by his creditors. Regardless, my predicament resolves. That day, Elena and I convened with Detective Renner and FBI agent Marcus Chen. With my urging, Elena disclosed everything about her role in Miles' financial deceit. Mrs. Warren, Agent Chen stated after she concluded, you are aware that what you're describing amounts to several federal offenses. Yes, Elena murmured, and in exchange for immunity, I am prepared to testify against Mr. Hartman. Elena looked at me and I signaled agreement. Yes, I will testify. Then we have a deal. However, Mrs. Warren, you must comprehend that this could be perilous. Mr. Hartman may retaliate. Detective Renner assured protection, stressing full cooperation was necessary. That night, Elena and Jack were ensconced in their living room, enveloped by federal agents readying her for testimony. The residence seemed a fortress, replete with armed guards and surveillance gear. In a hushed moment, Elena whispered, Jack, I know this doesn't undo the damage to our marriage, but thank you for your assistance. Jack, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. I understand, but still, thank you. The following day, the FBI unearthed evidence of Hartman's money laundering operation at his apartment. Miles, together with extensive records of his interactions with Dmitry Volkov, was apprehended and indicted for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. However, the most gratifying instance occurred 3 days later upon reading in a newspaper that federal agents had arrested Dmitry Volkov as part of an expansive probe into Russian criminal activities in Texas. Miles's strategy to manipulate dangerous criminals to resolve his issues miserably failed. Contrariwise, he led the FBI straight to his debtors instead. The courtroom drama unfolded 6 months afterward. Elena testified against Miles, receiving immunity, and disclosed his financial misdeeds and threats of violence against me. Miles was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Dmitry Volkov too faced charges but received a more extended sentence. Elena and I amicably parted ways through a divorce settlement that safeguarded my assets while providing her sufficient funds for a fresh start elsewhere. She relocated to Seattle, joining a modest marketing company while striving to re-establish her life. I chose to keep the house, the venture, but above all, my dignity. Half a year following the trial, Penny delivered a newspaper at the Lone Star Diner during breakfast. "Perhaps you'll find this interesting," she said, pointing to an article on page 3. The title read, "Death of Former Marketing Executive in Federal Prison." It was reported that Miles Hartman was discovered lifeless in his cell, seemingly a victim of prison violence. The piece mentioned that he had been incarcerated for fraud and money laundering. "It seems not all debts are paid," Penny commented. "Indeed," I replied. I completed my meal, left a substantial tip, and drove to my present construction site. A house awaited building, and work required my attention. Some might label what occurred to Miles Hartman as justice, others as retribution. I viewed it as a logical result of individuals believing they could deceive, pilfer, and injure others without suffering any retribution. Elena discovered that actions bring about outcomes, but she learned it in time to protect herself. Miles also grasped the same principle, but it came too late to make a difference. As for me, I found out that sometimes the most effective retaliation isn't something you inflict on your adversaries. Instead, it's providing them with enough leeway to hang themselves. The verdict was handed down, and justice was meted out. Give a like, and we move on to the next story. 47 years old, the head of Gray Ridge's largest coal business, found myself in my own kitchen past midnight, listening to my wife plot my downfall. "You're just excess baggage, Aaron," she said coldly through the small speaker. Maddie, my wife's college friend and confidante for months now, had been filling her mind with venomous ideas. I had hidden a recorder in Aaron's purse 3 days prior, hoping to decipher why my wife of 20 years was treating me like a discarded item. "I understand, it's terrifying. Starting over at 38, Erin sounded different, her voice echoing a new, ill-fitting persona. "Sweetheart, you're stunning, intelligent, and now you're earning substantial income at the logistics firm. Moreover, Jackson Price has been inquiring about you persistently. This man seems smitten indeed. Jackson, with his flawless teeth and expensive suits, works for the same company as Erin, drives a BMW that costs twice as much as many people earn in 2 years. I've noticed him at company events, always lingering near you like a bird of prey over carrion. But what about Sam? She's barely an adult and deeply admires her father. At least Erin was considering our daughter's feelings, which is something, I suppose. However, Sam's growing up fast. She'll comprehend that you deserve happiness. And truthfully, when was the last time your husband made you genuinely happy? When was the last time he took you somewhere special, bought you something lovely, or made you feel like a woman rather than a housekeeper?" I held the recorder more tightly, my knuckles standing out starkly against its black surface. "He makes her feel like a woman?" For 2 decades, I labored arduously for 16 hours daily to construct this business, providing Aaron, Sam, and myself with all their desired luxuries, houses, cars, vacations, Sam's college fund adequately funded for an Ivy League education if she chose. However, a recording of your voice, echoing in the silence, filled me with guilt. "You were right, my dear. Guilt is merely fear donning elegant attire. Brave up. Remove that ring, cease the pretense, and embark on the life you truly deserve, the one you've earned." The recording held Aaron's sobs, not those of sadness, but the kind of decision-altering tears women often shed. In the dark kitchen, swathed by 20 years of marriage, I found myself surrounded by reminders: the anniversary gift coffee maker, the beloved ceramic rooster from a craft fair, Sam's photos adorning the refrigerator like a chronicle of better days. The following morning, Aaron's wedding ring lay abandoned on the bathroom counter, resembling a tossed-aside candy wrapper. She ignored me during breakfast, engrossed in her phone screen as she nibbled at toast fragments. Sam prattled about her senior year, college applications, and weekend plans with friends, typical matters for an 18-year-old. Unaware of her mother's mental preparations for departure, she said, "I'll be out late tonight," without looking up. Office team meeting. On a Friday night, I questioned. Client presentation on Monday. You know the drill. Indeed, I did understand the routine. Moreover, I was aware that Jackson Price would attend that team meeting, likely with reservations at an upscale downtown restaurant. "All right, dear. I'll pick up pizza for Sam," I replied, watching as Erin nodded absent-mindedly and left for the garage. Through the window, I observed her backing out, already speaking into her phone, presumably informing Maddie that stage one was accomplished. I filled another coffee mug and pondered when my life transformed into a typical country ballad. Once prosperous businessman loses spouse to smooth urban man B. It was so predictable, CC, it ached. Yet cliches become cliches because they recur frequently, like an eternal cosmic joke the universe never tires of repeating. The mine office was a 20-minute commute through downtown Gray Ridge, passing closed storefronts and a church with peeling paint. This town once thrived when coal rained, and men like my grandfather could support families on honorable labor. Now it's just another fading town in Appalachia, clinging to life, while individuals like Jackson Price arrived to pick the carcass clean. Big Joe was in my office, his large physique cramped into a visitor chair, as if a bear were trying to fit in a dollhouse. Joe Kowalski has been my best friend since high school, back when we were both too naive to be afraid of anything. Now he owned the Lantern, the solitary bar in town that had survived, and he still appeared as if he could lift a pickup truck. "You appear terrible, Tommy," he said, skipping niceties. "What's troubling you?" I flung the recorder onto my table. "Have a listen to this." Joe's countenance darkened with each word. By the recording's end, his hands were balled up into fists as large as bowling balls. That treacherous, he checked himself, shook his head. "I apologize, buddy. I know you care for her deeply." "Do I?" The query startled me. "Or do I merely adore the concept of her, the woman I wedded 2 decades ago? What are your plans?" "That's a good question. The sensible move would be to file for divorce, divide everything equally, and strive to preserve some honor. The honorable move would be to defend my marriage, perhaps propose therapy, address our issues like mature individuals." In my office, engulfed by photos symbolizing my grandfather's conception and father's realization of a mind, I didn't feel intelligent or correct. Instead, I was enraged, deeply, darkly angry. "I'll make them pay for this," I declared. Joe smiled, but it wasn't an amiable gesture. "Now you're showing spirit. What can I do for you?" On Monday morning, Trish, the theatrical sibling of Erin and always a harbinger of turbulence, arrived at my office like a malevolent messenger. Patricia Hawkins, Erin's younger sister, was known for her dramatic flair. While Erin was calm and composed, Trish was fiery and tumultuous. She had divorced twice by 35 and treated others' relationships as her personal amusement. "Tommy," she said, sliding into the chair opposite my desk, "you have to see this." She gestured toward her phone, and I felt a sinking sensation in my stomach. Last night, messages between Erin and Jackson, postponed from their team meeting, revealed they were still thinking about each other. "Impressed by tonight, your performance was amazing. Reciprocated feelings here. Looking forward to repeat it soon. In a few days, Tom is going to Pittsburgh for the Coal Expo next week. 3 days alone together. I'm excited. I love you, Jackson." "Love you too, dear one. This is merely the start." I fixated on the screen until the words merged. With 20 years of marriage behind us, my wife was texting another man expressing genuine affection, not just flirting but actual love. "How did you come across these messages?" I inquired. Trish's grin was as sharp as a knife. "Erin left her phone on the kitchen table during our furniture rearrangement yesterday, and it buzzed. I glanced over, saw his name, and well, curiosity can be fatal, no. Why are you disclosing this to me?" "Because your family, Tom. because I've witnessed my sister transform into a stranger. Jackson Price, a longtime seducer of married women, has caught my attention for his deceitful actions. You might ask what I mean by that. 2 years ago, he used the same tactic on Karen Mills, who was then married with 2 children. He charmed her, persuaded her to abandon her husband, only to leave her high and dry once their divorce was finalized. Now she lives in Cleveland, working as a waitress and residing in a studio apartment, having lost custody of her children. Pondering this information left me unsettled. Indeed, Jackson Price appears to be a serial home wrecker. His pattern is clear. He flirts with married women for the thrill, without any intention or commitment beyond a fleeting affair. Given this history, it's likely his motives with Erin are similar, making her feel special, tempting her to upend her life, and then moving on to another victim. This time, however, he might be after more than just an affair, possibly your wealth as well. The logistics company offers a decent salary, but not like BMWs and designer suits. Jackson has expensive preferences and a gambling issue. You seem curious about his gambling habits. Well, we went on a few dates before he pursued your sister. He can't resist a poker game, and he's quite poor at it. The rumor is that he owes substantial amounts to powerful individuals. I re-examined the text messages, interpreting them differently this time. Jackson wasn't merely attempting to steal your wife. He was planning to appropriate your life, the house, the business, everything you had constructed. Unfortunately, Erin seems too engrossed in middle-aged infatuation to notice the looming danger. What should I do with this information, you ask? That decision is yours. Should Jackson Price encounter such a predicament, I'd ensure he comprehends the consequences of meddling with the wrong kinship. Following Trish's departure, I remained in my office, gazing out at the mine yards for an extended period, observing trucks moving to and fro, laborers clad in hard hats and safety vests engaged in diligent work. This domain, constructed by my family across 3 generations, seemed oblivious to the presumptuousness of a slick urbanite who thought he could effortlessly seize it all. My phone vibrated with a message from Erin. "Still working late tonight, don't stay up." A chuckle escaped me, yet she no longer attempted to disguise her deceit. Possibly underestimated my intelligence or overvalued my trust. The coal miner mired in grime and unsophisticated understanding versus her playing intricate games with the refined. It was time to display just how much I could match her sophistication. I commenced with investigation. 39-year-old Jackson Price, originally from Columbus, relocated to Gray Ridge 5 years ago following the establishment of a logistics firm's regional office. Divorced, with no children, he resided in one of the contemporary townhouses on the north side of town. He drove a 2022 leased BMW 5 Series with monthly payments amounting to $800. His credit report was intriguing, a connection from 2 decades of managing a business, information that could be obtained if one knew whom to approach and how much to pay. Jackson Price was reportedly buried in debt, maxed out credit cards, personal loans, and approximately $30,000 owed to bookmaker Vincent Torino, who operated out of a racetrack's back room. An idea emerged within me, not retribution but more like justice. Jackson seemed to enjoy manipulating people's lives. Well, let's see how he fares when the roles are reversed from dealing cards to becoming a player himself. That night, I observed his BMW parked at the Lantern. From the window, I observed him at a corner table with 3 companions, cards scattered among them, piles of chips standing tall. Trish had been correct about his gambling habits. I chose to park across the street and wait. After 2 hours, Jackson emerged solo, his expression one of defeat. He struggled with his keys, dropping them twice before finally unlocking his car. I trailed him home, maintaining a safe distance. His residence was at Riverside Commons, an assembly of identical townhouses that seemed mass-produced. All consisted of beige siding, black shutters, minuscule front yards, and driveways barely fitting a single vehicle. Jackson's house numbered 247, positioned at the end of the row, with a clear view of the parking lot from the street. This detail would prove useful. The following morning, I called in a favor from Pete Morrison, who managed Riverside's sole private investigation agency. At 70 years old and resembling a retired accountant, he was ideally suited for surveillance work. No one had suspected the elderly man in the fishing hat and crossword puzzle. "I want you to trail someone," I informed him. "Record all details, times, locations, people he interacts with, his actions." Pete queried, "Is this regarding your wife?" He'd been acquainted with me since childhood, so secrets were scant in Gray Ridge. "Photographs, if possible, everything you can gather, but be cautious," I added. "He's both intelligent and paranoid," I warned. Pete acknowledged with a nod. Intelligence and paranoia are the simplest to trap, as they believe themselves too clever, often overlooking the observant old man with a camera. Whilst Pete took charge of surveillance, I began scrutinizing Jackson's professional life. The logistics company where he and Aaron worked handled contracts for multiple local businesses, including mine. As a client, I was entitled to request meetings, pose questions, or even lodge complaints if service fell below expectations. Scheduled a meeting with regional office head, Carol Henderson, to address some concerns about the service. Carol, a no-nonsense type who values data and reports, welcomed me. After discussing routine business matters for 20 minutes, I delved into personnel issues. I've collaborated mainly with Aaron Mitchell, whom I mentioned might be overburdened or distracted due to inconsistencies in her reports. Carol expressed appreciation for Aaron's skills and professionalism. Her recent long working hours, including late meetings and weekend sessions, has made me uneasy that she might be overworking herself. Carol appeared perplexed. "We seldom organize client meetings during weekends, and our team meetings usually take place during office hours." Pausing for a moment, I shrugged it off. Perhaps it's just my paranoia. Maybe she talked about training sessions or working with Jackson Price on some specific project. Carol furrowed her brow deeper. "Jackson mainly deals with industrial clients, such as manufacturing and construction. Your sector is agriculture and mining, which falls under Aaron's jurisdiction. They wouldn't have much need for frequent collaboration." I nodded, jotting down a note on my phone. Indeed, it seems I may be overanalyzing. Aaron has been under pressure lately, discussing work all the time. I need to confirm she isn't overburdened. By the time I departed Carol's office, it was clear her mind was working overtime. She will undoubtedly pay greater attention to Aaron and Jackson from now on, keeping an eye out for any signs of a problematic professional bond that had been hidden from her view. In the evening, Pete called with his initial findings. "Your son has a pattern," he said. "Starbucks coffee at 7:30 each morning. Consistently orders the same item. Arrives at work by 8:15. Takes lunch at 12:30, usually from that sandwich place on Main Street. Leaves work around 5:30, goes to the gym 3 times a week, plays poker at the Lantern every Tuesday and Friday. What about his off-work hours?" That's where it becomes intriguing. Yesterday, he left work on time, but around 8 p.m., a silver Honda Civic parked in his driveway. A woman got out, entered his house, and didn't depart until almost midnight. Aaron drives a silver Honda Civic. Do you have pictures? They are crystal clear. Do you prefer I send an email or meet in person? Email works for me. How about tonight? His routine is consistent. He's at the gym now, and he's been there for approximately an hour. I'm parked across the street, observing his next move. After Pete disconnected, I found myself in my kitchen, surrounded by the vestiges of our marriage. Erin's coffee cup from this morning remains untouched in the sink. Her reading glasses lie on the counter near a pile of unsorted mail. A grocery list penned in her handwriting adheres to the refrigerator with a magnet made by Sam in the second grade, symbolizing 2 decades of shared life that she seems intent on discarding for a man who views her as merely another conquest. The most painful aspect is, she likely believes she's being intelligent, contemporary, modern. Managing her life, pursuing her heart, all the empowering, cliched notions her friends have been feeding her. My phone vibrated. A text from Erin. "Meeting delayed once more. No need to wait. I love you." She concluded her deception with "love you." This was as she prepared to visit Jackson's townhouse for another round of betraying our shared history. I responded, "Love you too." Stay safe, since my feelings for her remained unchanged. The pain of 20 years vanishing because of a midlife crisis doesn't dissipate that easily. Yet love doesn't make one foolish. Nor does it mean tolerating mistreatment. Jackson Price was eager to play games. Well, he would soon understand that some games carry greater risks. The images Pete sent me were clear, time-stamped, and heartrending. Erin's Honda parked in Jackson's driveway. Erin carrying a suitcase toward the house. Jackson welcoming her with a kiss that was far from professional. The most detrimental image was the final one of Erin departing the next day, still in yesterday's attire, disheveled hair, and appearing anxious as he entered his vehicle. She seemed as if she had committed a grave crime, and the timestamp revealed it was 7:15 am, suggesting she hurried home to freshen up before work. I reproduced the photos and arranged them on my desk like pieces of evidence in a murder trial. In essence, that's what they were, proof of the demise of my marriage. Sam rapped on my office door at midday, returning from school with a headache that might have been more about dodging her chemistry test than any real malady. "Dad, can I discuss something with you?" "Of course, sweetheart. What's troubling you?" She collapsed into the chair opposite my desk, long limbs and elbows like a fragile foal. At 18, Sam was blossoming into a lovely young woman, but she still had instances where she resembled the small child who once demanded bedtime stories from me. "Are you and your mother all right?" This query struck me forcefully, akin to a blow to the stomach. Despite our attempts at discretion, we believed we had concealed our troubles from Sam as she neared the end of her senior year. "Why do you inquire thus?" she inquired. "Your mother has been behaving strangely recently. She stays out late, is constantly on her phone, and assumes a guilty expression whenever I ask about her whereabouts. Moreover, your parents seldom converse as they used to, giving the impression of being mere roommates rather than spouses. Your mother has also been working excessively, taking up significant projects at work, as you are aware." Sam gave me a glance that conveyed she found my explanation unconvincing. "Dad," she said, "I'm 18, not 8. I can discern the signs of marital difficulties. Almost half my friends' parents have gone through divorces." Pondering how much truth an 18-year-old could bear, I leaned back in my chair, grappling with the dilemma of shielding her from this chaos while she remained my little girl. "I've been facing difficulties with your grandmother," I conceded, "and we're striving to resolve it." "Are you cheating on her?" The direct question caught me off guard. Sam scrutinized my expression intensely, as if analyzing for a test. "What prompted that question?" "Trish had asked me the same thing yesterday. She mentioned that Grandma has been acting oddly, and there's a coworker who's been giving her excessive attention. His name is Jackson, I believe." Oh, Trish and her loose lips. I didn't want Sam getting entangled in this domestic drama through her aunt's rumors. "Your Aunt Trish enjoys creating turmoil," I replied cautiously. "She's been doing so since she was your age." "So it isn't true." My daughter's eyes met mine, and I saw a young adult who deserved honesty, even if the truth was unpleasant. She was preparing for college in the fall, embarking on her own life. She had a right to know about our family's situation. "I can't confirm for certain," I admitted, "but I'm investigating." Sam understandably seemed to anticipate my response. "In case it turns out to be true, I don't know what will happen between your mom and me, but one thing remains constant: our unwavering love for you. That's something no situation can alter." She offered a mature, bittersweet smile that tugged at my heart. "I understand, Dad. I just wish we could return to the way things were." "Yes, dear. I share the same sentiment." Upon Sam returning to school, I phoned Pete for an update. He reported, "Your wife is with Jackson right now. She arrived approximately an hour ago and parked in the back this time instead of the driveway. They seem to be being more cautious." Regarding Jackson's other activities, he added, "The poker game last night ended poorly. From what I could see, he lost around $2,000. He was visibly upset when he left, spending about 20 minutes on his phone in the parking lot, possibly discussing financial matters." "Was it the bookie?" "It seems my hunch is correct. Vincent Torino isn't fond of late payments." An idea began to take shape in my mind. "It's risky, possibly illegal, yet immensely gratifying. Pete, I said, I need a favor from you. If anyone inquires, this conversation never transpired. I'm all ears. What I want you to do is call Vincent Torino, I continued. Tell him you've heard that Jackson Price has been boasting about receiving substantial funds soon. A significant amount, enough to cover his debts. Make it sound as if he's planning on leaving town without settling them. Pete fell silent for a while. Tommy, he warned, this is playing with fire. Torino isn't someone you want to cross. I won't be the one crossing him. I'm just sharing information. It's up to him what he does with that information. And if something unfortunate happens to Jackson, well, he should have considered that before damaging my family. Pete sighed. I'll initiate the call, but remember it was never discussed here. That night, it seemed appropriate for a direct strategy. Erin appeared to be working late, or perhaps she was at Jackson's place, according to what Sam had been told. I navigated to Riverside Commons and parked my vehicle across from his townhouse. As anticipated, Erin's Honda was concealed behind the structure, out of sight. They were becoming more adept at hiding their footprints. I remained in my truck for approximately an hour, filling the silence with the radio and keeping watch on the windows. Around 9, I noticed activity in what seemed to be the living room. Shadows danced on the curtains, indicating two figures close together. My phone rang, an unknown number flashing on the screen. Hello? Are you Thomas Mitchell? The voice was gruff, with a foreign accent that eluded my understanding. Who's speaking? A person intrigued by Jackson Price. I believe you might possess information regarding his financial affairs. This is Vincent Torino. It seems Pete moved swiftly. The type of information sought revolves around whether Mr. Price intends to uphold his promises, or if he is habitual in making pledges he cannot fulfill. I observed the shadows shifting behind Jackson's townhouse curtains, feeling a chill settle within me. It seems that Mr. Price has been discussing impending financial gains, possibly a business opportunity, a partnership involving valuable assets. However, my personal suspicion leans towards him being a blowhard, a man who makes grandiose declarations to win over women, only to vanish when it's time for fulfillment. The basis of this knowledge, strictly between us, is that Mr. Price has been spending an unusual amount of time with my wife, regaling her with tales of their supposed joint fortune. The predicament is that my wife can't access my funds, and she's on the verge of discovering her boyfriend isn't as financially successful as he portrays. Torino let out a chuckle, reminiscent of gravel in a cement mixer. It seems Mr. Price has been making pledges to numerous people. That's not particularly astute. No, it isn't. Well, Mr. Mitchell, I thank you for the information. It appears that Mr. Price and I need to discuss his future strategies. The connection was severed. I remained in my truck, fixated on Jackson's townhouse, contemplating if I had ventured across a line I couldn't retrace. Then I thought about Erin's wedding ring on the bathroom counter, about the text messages, about 2 decades of marriage potentially vanishing for a persuasive swindler. Perhaps some boundaries were intended to be transgressed. My phone vibrated. A message from Erin. Will be extremely late due to an emergency at work. No need to keep awake. I responded. No issue. Manage your crisis. I'll manage my own matter. Then I drove home to anticipate the fireworks. The following day marked a flaw in Jackson's unblemished veneer. At Murphy's Diner, I was sipping coffee when Carol Henderson entered purposefully. She noticed me sitting in my regular spot and approached without an invitation. Mr. Mitchell, I'm grateful for this encounter. We require a conversation. Of course, Carol. Take a seat. Coffee, she declined, too restless to sit comfortably. It pertains to what you discussed yesterday about Erin and Jackson Price. I conducted some investigation and discovered discrepancies I must share with you. What type of discrepancies? Timesheets, expense reports, client meetings that don't align with our scheduling system. It appears that Erin and Jackson have been submitting overtime and travel expenses for tasks potentially not performed. Did you say they've been embezzling from the company? I put down my coffee cup cautiously. I've identified inconsistencies requiring further examination, which will be addressed formally. I've already liaised with our internal compliance unit, and an auditor is due next week. Will Aaron and Jackson remain on leave during this process? Affirmative response. Yes, that's the standard approach. I tried to project a worried expression instead of smugness upon hearing this. Thank you for the update, Carol. This situation is indeed challenging, considering Aaron's my spouse. I comprehend, and please be assured that whatever results from the investigation won't impact our business ties with your company. We've been loyal clients for quite some time. After Carol departed, I lingered in the diner for an hour more, observing Gray Ridge stir into action. The workforce streaming to their jobs, children trotting off to school, and elderly regulars congregating for their daily coffee and neighborhood chatter. Life carrying on as it always did, while my world fractured and reformed into something unrecognizable. The phone rang, with Erin presumably calling to break news about my suspension before it spread. She sounded distressed, possibly frightened. For a fleeting instant, I felt a hint of sympathy for her. What's happened? Some confusion in the accounting department. They alleged Jackson, and I faked some reports, claimed unauthorized expenses. It's preposterous, but we're both being suspended while they look into it. That's quite severe, Aaron. What sort of expenses are these? Overtime, travel costs, entertainment for clients. But it's all legitimate, honestly. We've been putting in extra hours on the Consolidated Industries account and taking clients out to dinner. Everything had management approval, even from Consolidated Industries. I didn't know them before, and I recognized most of the significant businesses around here. Who's your contact at Consolidated? I inquired. What difference does that make? Just wondering is all. If they're a significant client, I might know them and could vouch for you, but the contact values confidentiality in business matters. It's delicate, as you understand. I'm positive everything will work out, I replied. Such situations often do. I hope so. Perhaps I'll return home early today if that suits. Of course it does. It's your place too, for the time being, I didn't add. After eating, I visited the lantern to meet Big Joe. He was polishing glasses and seemed to have learned something intriguing. I hear your spouse has been suspended from work, he stated bluntly. News moves swiftly in this town. Good news spreads quickly. Bad news spreads even quicker. Is this good or bad news? I pondered. It depends on one's viewpoint. Joe smiled in response. Understandable. In that case, it's good news, as far as I can tell. Fancy a beverage? I declined, stating it was too early for me, but I'd take a Coke. He served my drink and stood casually at the bar. What's next? I replied. Now, I'll observe how Jackson manages under pressure. He's accustomed to things going his way. He's bound to falter when chaos ensues. Talking about blunders, have you heard about his issue with Vincent Torino? I feigned surprise. The gossip is that Torino dropped by last night for a chat about payment deadlines and the significance of keeping promises. Jackson seemed quite unsettled upon leaving for work this morning. Debts from gambling can be severe, extremely severe, and particularly dangerous when one owes $30,000 to someone who doesn't believe in installment payments. Our conversation was interrupted by the noise of screeching tires in the parking lot. Through the window, I could see Jackson's BMW parked at an odd angle, suggesting he had hurried to enter. Moments afterwards, Jackson violently entered the room, appearing as if he had encountered a specter. He promptly recognized my presence and marched towards my table, his countenance filled with wrath. "You spawn of a witch," he growled. "You did this, didn't you?" I gazed at him serenely, taking a sip from my Coke. "Did what, Jackson? The audit? The suspension? Torino, you believe I am unaware of the situation. I suspect you are merely having a difficult day and searching for someone to accuse. Perhaps it would be beneficial for you to sit down, have a drink, and relax a bit. Don't try to deceive me, Mitchell. I am fully aware of your nature, a small-town tough guy who thinks he can bully people with his coal mining contacts and redneck friends." Big Joe straightened from behind the bar, standing tall at 6'4", weighing 250 pounds. "You'd best watch what you say, young man. This is an esteemed establishment." Jackson cast a glance at Joe, then returned his gaze to me. "You can't prevent what's taking place, you understand. Erin no longer loves you. She hasn't for a long time. She's merely carrying on with routine, hoping for a better option to appear." The statement resonated deeply as I too wondered about its accuracy. "Perhaps it is," I responded. "But at least I'm not someone who exploits married women to settle gambling debts." Jackson paled upon hearing this. "I have no idea what you mean." "Of course you do. Vincent Torino made it clear to me. It appears you've been misleading people about impending wealth. You speak of a business partnership with a wealthy widow, yet Erin is not a widow and she has no control over my finances. So, where exactly does this fortune you've promised exist? Are you delusional, or do I simply appear to be your escape from debt? The issue is, you didn't do your research. You selected my wife as your means of escape due to the belief she would be your ticket out of debt. Unfortunately for you, you were mistaken." In the bar, Jackson acknowledged that Erin had no legal claim to his business assets following their 20-year marriage and declared he knew how to safeguard his possessions. Glancing around, he recognized our discussion had drawn a crowd, likely due to the lunch rush and everyone listening intently. "This isn't finished," he stated, yet his voice seemed weak. "You're correct," I responded. "It's not, but it will end according to my terms. The only uncertainty is how much it will cost you before you grasp that reality." Jackson angrily departed, leaving the car engine running as he hurriedly exited. Through the window, I observed him drive off, likely returning to his townhouse to ponder his next action. "Do you think he'll act recklessly?" Joe questioned. "I'm hoping so." Later that day, Erin was at home waiting for me when I arrived from work. She sat at the kitchen table in her work clothes, appearing as if she had been crying. "We need a conversation," she initiated. "All right, what's on your mind?" I replied. "On the subject, our recent predicaments, Jackson specifically," she began. After several weeks of untruths and subterfuge, she was prepared for an open discussion. I filled a cup with coffee and took my seat opposite her. "I'm here to listen. I'm aware, aren't I," she whispered softly, "of your knowledge about Jackson and me. It seems you've discovered the truth, judging by your expression. You recognize, don't you, Tommy? I can see it in your eyes." "Yes, I do. I know. I apologize, Tommy. I didn't intend for this to transpire. It simply happened. Things like that don't just happen. People make decisions. You decided to infidelity. You chose to deceive me. To Sam. To everyone who cares about you." Her tears returned, this time not from sorrow but guilt. "I understand that it was wrong, but I felt suffocated, invisible, as if I was merely existing instead of truly living. So, instead of discussing your feelings with me, you chose to jeopardize our marriage. Did you care to hear me, dismiss me, or merely tell me to be content with what I have, as you often do? It hurt because it might have been accurate. I've never excelled at emotional discussions, that much hasn't changed. I express affection through labor and provision, ensuring my family's well-being, being dependable. Yet, it seems that isn't enough now. What is it you want, Erin? A divorce? I'm unsure. Perhaps. Jackson believes we can create something genuine, start anew somewhere else. You understand he's manipulating you, don't you? He's not a romantic savior taking you to a better life. He's a swindler with gambling debts who views you as an easy target. That isn't true, is it? Ask him about the $30,000 he owes Vincent Torino. Inquire about Karen Mills, the last married woman he persuaded to abandon her husband. Probe about the audit that will expose his embezzlement from our company to finance his gambling addiction." Erin's countenance turned ashen. "How did you learn about the audit?" "Because I know everything, it's Erin. I am aware of the fabricated expense reports, the fictitious clients, and the deceptions you've been perpetrating on everyone, even yourself. Jackson isn't your pathway to a better life, but he's your ticket to prison." As she looked at me, I could see uncertainty creeping in. Perhaps for the first time, she was questioning whether Jackson Price was everything he presented himself as. "I require some time to reflect," she eventually said. "Take as much time as you need. However, remember this, if you opt for him over our family, there's no going back. I won't be here when it collapses." She nodded and ascended the stairs. I remained at the kitchen table, hearing her footsteps overhead, and pondered whether I had just salvaged my marriage or irrevocably damaged it. Regardless, there was no going back now. The audit findings materialized faster than anticipated. The corporate compliance team took no leniency regarding the suspected fraud, particularly when the proof was as indisputable as in Jackson and Aaron's records. Carol Henderson personally informed me about it. "Thomas," she said, "I wanted you to learn this from me before it becomes public. The investigation has ended, and the results are substantial." I was in my mine office, observing the morning shift transition through my window. Ordinary people performing honest work, earning their wages through labor and perspiration. The contrast didn't escape me. How substantial. Jackson has been terminated on the spot, and we're passing the case to law enforcement for possible criminal accusations. The fabricated expense reports, fictitious client accounts, and unauthorized overtime claims amounted to approximately $47,000. As for Aaron, Carol's tone told me all I needed to know. Aaron's predicament is more intricate. Evidence indicates she was part of a scheme, possibly coerced by Jackson. We're offering a resignation option instead of termination, on condition she reimburses her share of the false claims, which amounts to $18,000. This sum is more than many residents of Gray Ridge earn in half a year, misused to finance an illicit affair promising love and financial liberation. If she can't repay, we'll also pursue criminal charges against her, involving wire fraud, theft from an interstate business, potentially leading to federal prison time. After ending the call, I spent considerable time in my office contemplating choices and their repercussions. Aaron had put Carol in this position, symbolically speaking. The question is whether I'll let her bear the consequences alone. My phone vibrated, a message from Pete. Jackson seems to be preparing to flee, packing his belongings at his townhouse. I replied, "Continue observing. Inform me if Price attempts to depart the city." After that, I dialed Vincent Torino personally. The matter of payment deadlines and upholding promises was at hand. "Mr. Torino, this is Thomas Mitchell regarding Jackson Price." Mr. Mitchell, pleased to hear from you. It appears your intel was on point. Price is dealing with a financial crisis." "Indeed, I'd like to discuss a potential business proposal." "I'm all ears for business discussions. What's the plan?" "Price owes you $30,000, and he also owes my wife's previous employer $18,000 in restitution, not to mention legal fees related to his pending criminal charges. The man is broke and on the run." "I was already aware of this situation, Mr. Mitchell. You might not be aware, but Jackson has been assuring my wife that they will embark on a new life in an exotic location, possibly Costa Rica or the Philippines, where extradition treaties don't apply." Torino fell silent for a moment. "And you're telling me this for what reason?" "I believe Jackson plans to vanish tonight, and I think it's only fair that you claim what is rightfully yours before he does." "Rather considerate of you, Mr. Mitchell, quite civic-minded. I'm simply a concerned citizen who values repaying debts." "Certainly. Well, Mr. Mitchell, it seems Mr. Price, and I should have one last discussion about his travel plans." The line disconnected. I gazed out my window at the mine yard, at the trucks, machinery, and hard-working men, and pondered if my grandfather would approve of the person I'd evolved into. Likely not, but he wouldn't have encountered smooth-talking swindlers trying to seize his life's accomplishments. Around midday, Sam rang from school. "Dad, something peculiar is happening. You appeared unexpectedly and took me out of class, stating we needed a conversation, yet remaining vague about the issue. My location is now the school parking lot. She's on the phone, sobbing. Child, I sense your fear. What's transpiring?" A dreadful situation seems to be unfolding as she hinted at a need for us to leave temporarily due to turmoil at work and potential threats towards her. Jackson, it appears, has persuaded Aaron to flee with him, likely concocting a tale about the chance of a fresh start if they escape before the law catches up with them. I implore you to heed my words. Do not enter your mother's vehicle at this moment. Remain in the parking lot, keep yourself among people, and await my arrival. Child, you're frightening me, but believe me, it's crucial that you trust me on this. I'll reach you in 10 minutes. Hurrying through downtown Gray Ridge, I arrived at the high school within 8 minutes, driving faster than advisable. Found Sam standing beside the flagpole, looking young, frightened, and perplexed. Aaron was absent. "Where's your mother?" she responded. "She left around 5 minutes ago after receiving another call. She became distraught and said she needed to attend to something urgently. She told me to wait here, assuring me she would return. Didn't she mention who called? Someone named Jackson. She kept repeating, 'Calm down, I can't understand you.' And what do you mean they're here?" Vincent Torino had encountered Jackson. Evidently, their conversation was not going smoothly. "Sam, I require you to return to the school and wait in the principal's office. Contact your Aunt Trish, informing her to come get you." "But what about my mother?" "I will manage your mother's situation. At present, it is crucial that you remain safe." Sam seemed poised to argue, but was silenced by my tone. She nodded and resumed her path towards the school building. I hastened to Riverside Commons, my thoughts whirling with various scenarios. In the worst-case situation, Torino was merely discussing payment methods with Jackson. However, it seemed that matters had escalated beyond repair. Jackson's townhouse appeared tranquil externally, yet his BMW and an unfamiliar black Cadillac were present in the driveway. Likely, Torino's vehicle was there too. I parked on the opposite street and contacted Pete. "Where are you?" I asked. "2 blocks away, observing through binoculars. You should keep a distance, Tommy. This isn't a situation you wish to involve yourself in." A silver Honda arrived about 10 minutes ago. Erin went inside, reappearing 5 minutes later with a pale expression. She's now on the phone in her car. I could make out Erin's Honda parked by the curb and see her outline behind the wheel. She was passionately speaking to someone, presumably Jackson, likely trying to decipher what was transpiring with their romantic getaway plans. My phone rang, displaying Erin's number. "Tommy, thank goodness, I need your assistance. You ask where I am, I'm at Jackson's place, but something is amiss. Men are here, dangerous ones, inquiring about money, about debts that Jackson owes them. It totals $30,000. They claim he deceived them, stating he would settle the debt with earnings from a business deal. However, the business deal failed, and now they demand their payment. I haven't told you about any business deal, have I? Apparently, Jackson used my name as collateral for his gambling debts. He even told Vincent Torino that I was supporting his bets, that I would cover the debt if he couldn't pay. Erin, I urge you to listen closely. Get in your car and leave immediately. Do not return home or go to work. Instead, go to a public place and remain there until I contact you. First sentence, these men are going to harm him. Second sentence, Jackson brought himself into this predicament. He can extract himself too. Third sentence, Tommy, despite your dislike for him, he doesn't deserve this. He erred, but he's not evil at heart. Originally, she was still advocating for him, still maintaining his falsehoods, and still viewing him as a romantic hero misunderstood, rather than a swindler who entangled her in his illicit activities. Fourth sentence, Aaron, Jackson swindled nearly $50,000 from your company. He's facing federal fraud charges. He owes money to perilous individuals and has been using my name and standing to gain more time. He isn't the man you believe he is. That's a fallacy. Fifth sentence, it is indeed true. And if you don't leave this place immediately, you will find yourself engulfed in something that annihilates whatever remains of your life. Through my windshield, I observed motion in Jackson's front window, shadows, people moving about. Then I heard the sound of shattering glass, followed by calls for Aaron. "Are you available, Aaron?" The line was silent. From across the road, your Honda remained parked by the curb, yet you were nowhere in sight. I was preparing to step out of my truck when my phone rang, an unknown number. "Hello, this is Vincent Torino. It seems there are some things you and I need to discuss face to face," he said. "What's the topic?" he replied. "Regarding your business relationship with Mr. Jackson Price, it appears he believes you're partners in a venture of some sort, that you have agreed to support his financial responsibilities." "That's false. I had my suspicions, but I wanted to hear it from you directly. Would you be willing to meet with me somewhere public, somewhere secure?" As I gazed at Jackson's townhouse, your car, and the chaos that had ensued in my life, I agreed to meet at Murphy's Diner downtown in 20 minutes. "I'll see you there." I informed Pete to keep an eye on the townhouse, to call the police if any violent incidents occurred. Drove to Murphy's Diner for a discussion that would decide the outcome of the situation. Vincent Torino was, as I anticipated, a man in his 50s, well-dressed and exuding an unspoken authority from never needing to shout. He seemed unfazed, sipping coffee and reading a newspaper like he had no worries when I arrived. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Mitchell." I sat down opposite him. "First, let's make it clear. I've never entered into any business dealings with Jackson Price. I've neither agreed to cover his debts nor granted permission for him to use my name as security." Torino acknowledged this with a nod. As expected, Mr. Price tends to overstate his associations when stressed. Now, it appears that Mr. Price and I are reaching an agreement regarding his responsibilities. He owes me $30,000, accrued interest included. He will repay it regardless of the method. And concerning your wife? Regarding your wife, Mr. Mitchell, she's not my business. She chose her path just as Mr. Price did his. Yet, I couldn't help but think about Erin, waiting in her car outside Jackson's townhouse, clinging to fairy tales and anticipating happy endings, convinced she could rescue a man who deceived her from the start. "How about I propose something?" I suggested to Torino. He raised an eyebrow in response. "What sort of proposition?" "Jackson Price wrecked my marriage, swindled my wife's employer, and used my name to postpone his gambling debts. I want him out of this town, away from us forever, and I'll cover the $30,000 he owes in cash right now. In exchange, you ensure he realizes Gray Ridge isn't a suitable place for him anymore." Torino displayed a chilling smile. "That's a generous offer, Mr. Mitchell, but why would you shoulder another man's debts? Because it's less costly than a divorce attorney, and it assures the outcome I desire. Jackson departs, my spouse returns, and life resumes its course. If my spouse elects to stay with Mr. Price after all that has transpired, so be it. At least I will have done everything in my power to salvage my marriage." Torino finishes his coffee and rises. $30,000 must be obtained within an hour, and Mr. Mitchell, let this discussion remain confidential. Acknowledged. On my way to the bank to withdraw $30,000 from my business account, I pondered the decisions that led me here. A year prior, I was a thriving entrepreneur with a secure marriage and a daughter preparing for college. Now, I'm settling debts to make my lover vanish at the behest of a bookie. Love at times can manifest as blossoming bonds, versus tender gestures, yet entail tough decisions, unsightly compromises, and enduring any cost for the people who are essential. This is true even if they don't appreciate it, don't wish to be safeguarded, or may never comprehend what you forfeited on their behalf. The bank manager showed worry when I sought $30,000 in cash, but decades of professional connections and an unblemished credit record facilitated access to opportunities that might have remained closed for others. Within the hour, I found myself en route to Riverside Commons with a gym bag filled with more money than most saw in a year on my passenger seat. Pete phoned as I parked in the lot opposite Jackson's townhouse. Conditions evolved, he informed me. The black Cadillac had departed roughly 20 minutes ago. Jackson emerged soon after, loaded some luggage into his BMW, and left swiftly, as if his rear was ablaze. What about Erin? I wondered. From my vantage point in my parked car, I could see her slumped over the steering wheel, sobbing, which appeared to be her husband's empty lover's house. After 20 years of marriage, she was reduced to tears outside a lover's vacant home, while I was settling his gambling debts, making him vanish. My phone vibrated, an anonymous text. the parking lot behind Murphy's Diner, in 5 minutes. Torino demanded his money. I drove to the diner and found a black Cadillac idling behind the building, engine running. Torino sat in the passenger seat, while another man, younger and bigger, was at the wheel, the type who resolves issues with fists instead of words. I pulled up next to them and rolled down my window. Torino followed suit. "You have what I asked for, Mr. Mitchell." I showed him the gym bag containing $30,000 as agreed. "Where's Jackson?" "Jackson is no longer your worry. He believes a change of environment will improve his well-being permanently. Mr. Price harbors an intense longing to explore distant regions, areas that contrast starkly with Gray Ridge." I tossed the sack into Torino's car window. He inspected its contents, nodded at his chauffeur, and departed, leaving me solitary in the parking lot, $27,000 poorer and relieved of one less burden. Jackson Price vanished, likely already traversing highways leading away from this place, armed only with hastily gathered belongings and a firm resolve that returning would harm his health. I was now left to confront Erin. I discovered her still parked in her Honda outside Jackson's townhouse, gazing at the vacant driveway as if expecting him to return. I positioned my vehicle behind hers and approached to rap on her window. She gazed at me with reddened eyes and cheeks streaked by tears, and for a fleeting instant, she mirrored the 20-year-old bride I'd wedded young, terrified, and utterly overwhelmed. "He departed," she whispered as she lowered the glass. "He simply vanished without a trace or a goodbye." I realize those individuals arrived at our residence, and he was petrified, Tommy. I've never witnessed him like that before. He kept insisting he required money, stating he needed it to appease them or something terrible would transpire. "Did he request funds from you?" She nodded, her countenance showing embarrassment. "He implored me to ask for a loan from you, claimed it was only temporary, that he'd repay as soon as he regained his footing." "What was your response?" "I informed him I would attempt. I suggested perhaps you'd oblige if I outlined the circumstances. Despite all the deceit, infidelity, and theft, Jackson expected me to cover his gambling debts. The audacity was astounding. "Erin, step out of the vehicle. We need a conversation." She guided me to a bench in the small park opposite Jackson's housing complex. The afternoon was delightful, sunny and warm, reminding one that winter was yet to arrive. Amidst ordinary individuals walking their pets and children playing in the playground, life carried on as usual while my marriage crumbled publicly. "Jackson won't return," I stated. "How can you be sure?" "I settled his debts. $30,000 to Vincent Torino, the bookie he owed money to. In exchange, Jackson agreed to depart from this town permanently." Erin seemed shocked, as if I'd just claimed the earth was flat. "What did you do?" "I freed us from his influence. It appeared to be the most practical solution." "You had no authority to act like that." "I had every justification. He was using my name for his gambling debts, making me responsible for his wagers. He tarnished my reputation by involving it in his illicit activities. Yet you still favor him." The phrases lingered between us, echoing as a debate. Despite the accumulated deceit, treachery, and legal accusations, she persisted in believing Jackson Price was her destined partner. "No, that's not it," I whispered. "You adore the notion of him. You cherish the tale he spun about himself and your future together, but that narrative was a fiction, Erin. Jackson Price is a swindler who lured you because he believed you were his path to effortless wealth." "That's not accurate." "It is. Contemplate this, in all the moments you spent with him, how much did Jackson truly reveal about himself, his background, his history, his genuine financial standing?" She remained silent for a prolonged instant, reflecting on their relationship, searching for substance beneath the polished words and affectionate gestures. "He claimed his family was intricate, that he had faced misfortune in investments." "Misfortune with investments? Is that what he referred to as a $30,000 debt from gambling?" "You don't comprehend. He aimed to earn money to establish a business with you. All his actions were for our mutual future." I nearly chuckled. Even after Jackson passed away and the proof of his crimes accumulated around her, Aaron still rewrote history to make him the protagonist of their narrative. Aaron, Jackson embezzled nearly $50,000 from your company. He's facing federal fraud charges. The audit uncovered false expense reports, fake client accounts, unauthorized overtime claims, and you aided him in it. This resonated with her. Her complexion paled, and she seemed on the verge of vomiting. I wasn't aware. He claimed the expenses were valid, that they were approved. Did you ever witness the approvals? Did you ever verify the client accounts? She shook her head, and it was clear when the gravity of her predicament struck her. She wasn't merely a woman who had an affair. She was an accomplice to corporate fraud. The outcome hinges on your decision. Carol Henderson offers you the option of resignation instead of termination, but under the condition that you repay the $18,000 you embezzled. Regrettably, I don't have that amount. In truth, I do. She glanced at me with what seemed like a glimmer of optimism. Would you actually do that? You are, in essence, everything you've done. I would do it for Sam. She doesn't need her mother in federal prison during her final year of high school. What would you ask in return? It was a reasonable query. What did I desire? A return to my former life. The relationship we shared before Jackson Price arrived with his charming discourse and extravagant attire. That was unattainable, given the numerous events and transgressions that had taken place. I yearned for sincerity, I admitted eventually. Transparency about everything, the affair, the money. We were following a similar path with Jackson that you seek from life. If I am truthful, if I disclose everything, then we can decide what happens next. Perhaps we can attempt to mend our marriage. Perhaps we'll divorce while maintaining friendship for Sam's sake, or something else might occur. Regardless of what happens, we'll base our actions on honesty rather than deceit. Erin was crying once more, but these were not the tears of a woman watching her dreams crumble. Instead, they were the exhausted tears of someone who had carried too many secrets for far too long. I was miserable, Tommy. It wasn't you I was unhappy with directly, but with my life. I felt like I was fading away, simply going through the motions of existence. Jackson made me feel significant, treasured, as if I had value. You do have value. You always have. But not in the way Jackson made me feel. With him, I felt like a woman rather than just a spouse and mother. I felt wanted, thrilling, worthy of pursuit. I pondered over this, over the distinction between being loved and being desired, between being cherished and being pursued. Perhaps it was here that I had erred. I had become so engrossed in supporting our family that I neglected my wife. I apologized, acknowledging she felt ignored. I apologized for taking her for granted. I expressed remorse for the lies and infidelity, including the near destruction of 2 decades of marriage for a fraudulent man. We spent another hour on that bench, discussing our marriage, errors, daughter, future. Frankly, it was not a fairy tale reconciliation due to extensive harm. However, it was a beginning. What's next? Aaron inquired as we walked towards our cars. You return home, I responded. We work out repayment for the $18,000. We inform Sam about recent events, considering her age. And from then on, we move forward one day at a time. And what about Jackson? Jackson is not returning. He no longer has a place here. Vincent Torino lost his job, tarnished his reputation, and made it clear that Gray Ridge was not a suitable place for him to reside. Aaron acknowledged the situation's irreversibility. She needed to retrieve personal items left at his house since it was now vacant. Jackson's townhouse received one last lingering glance, symbolizing her farewell to the dream life she had envisioned. Then, Aaron got into her Honda and followed me home. Upon arrival, Sam was in the kitchen with a combination of relief and bewilderment. Are you two all right? Aunt Trish asked, mentioning an incident at Aaron's workplace. We're fine, dear, I responded. Aaron and I have matters to sort out, but we are okay. Are you getting divorced? Upon looking at each other, it became clear that Aaron and I had not yet clarified the divorce question. We don't know, Aaron answered truthfully. We intend to repair things, but it's intricate. Is this due to Jackson? Intelligent child, perhaps excessively so. That's correct, Sam acknowledged with a nod as if anticipating the response. Truth be told, I never found him appealing. Later that day, once Sam retreated to her room for homework, Erin and I remained at the kitchen table, steeped in 2 decades of shared history and a pot of coffee. Can we give this another try? She wondered. I'm unsure, but I believe we owe it to ourselves and to Sam to attempt. The endeavor won't be simple, there will be trust to rebuild. Trust is awarded, I replied. We'll both have to earn it. She reached across the table, gripping my hand, and for the first time in months, the gesture didn't feel false. I love you, Tommy, she confessed. My affection for you might not be overt, but it exists. I do love you as well. Love was never at question, rather, what was? Pondering the events that had transpired, Jackson Price, Vincent Torino, $30,000 stashed in a gym bag, I questioned instead, what is the real issue here? Was love sufficient for us to construct something genuine, or were we merely going through the motions? Time would tell. In half a year, Jackson Price was apprehended in Phoenix due to federal fraud allegations concerning an investment scheme aimed at senior retirees. This story graced the cover of the Gray Ridge Gazette, with a note that he had previously worked at a nearby logistics company prior to his departure for personal matters. Erin repaid her portion of the embezzled funds using resources from her retirement savings. She switched jobs to a smaller organization where she earned less, but labored under bosses who appreciated honesty rather than intricate financial maneuvers. We embarked on marriage therapy, an experience as dreary as its name suggests, yet more beneficial than anticipated. Dr. Sarah Chen guided us in comprehending our estrangement and the manner in which we ceased perceiving each other as individuals instead of just roles to fulfill. Your daughter, Sam, who was the top student in her high school class and received a full scholarship to the University of Virginia, approached me at her graduation party. I'm proud of you, Dad, she said. Why? For standing up for Mom, for standing up for our family, she replied. Many fathers would have surrendered. Your wife was worth fighting for, even after what transpired, especially after what transpired. People make mistakes, dear. The true measure of a person doesn't lie in their errors, but rather in how they respond. Today, Erin and I are still together, still striving to restore our relationship that was on the verge of collapse. It's not the same as before, it's different in some ways, more challenging in others. We communicate more now, argue more honestly, value each other more deeply. And occasionally, when I can't sleep at night, I ponder over Jackson Price. I ponder if he ever reflects on the life he sought to seize, the family he nearly annihilated, the toll of 30 pieces of silver, and an unconquerable gambling habit. Then I turn over and gaze at my spouse peacefully sleeping next to me, and I recall that some triumphs are worth any expense, even if the price is $30,000, and the awareness that at times the only way to preserve something is by being ready to ruin everything that jeopardizes it.